at MediaTek. We also keep an accounting to the board and all that. Oh yeah, Raul, sorry. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here you go.
All right, so these guys asked me to do a case study, and I thought, well, since we're a new company and some of you guys want to be new companies, maybe it might be helpful. So I'll take you through it. We're a studio, we call ourselves a studio of designers, developers, and artists in Brooklyn. This is our little office. So this company really started about 3 years ago, October 2010. I had just been fired from a company that I helped start. And I was thinking about what I wanted to do. And while I was in this corn maze with my kids, my wife took this picture like about a few minutes before this happened. One of my kids asked me if he could trade his birthday party for an iPhone. And he was about to have his kindergarten birthday party. And if you know anything about first graders or kindergartners, you know that like their birthday parties are their currency. Like that's how they punish each other. Like you're not going to my birthday party. And so it really made me think about how important this device was to him. And it made me start thinking about what he was consuming on it. And so he got his birthday party. He did not get an iPhone for his birthday party. He did save up for an entire year and eventually got one at the end of that year.
That's impressive.
And I started thinking about a company. And so I had a lot of ideas and ideas for names. And this is where TinyBop started in this little notepad. So I put myself in a studio space, a shared workspace that is in Brooklyn called Studio Mates with a bunch of other creative people. We all share desks there. We're all working on different problems, and this was my view. And so for a year, I was looking at these two bridges and thinking about what it was my kids were consuming. I went through the top 200 educational apps in the App Store and put them on the iPad. I played with them a lot. And I thought about what it was that I thought they needed to know about the world, and what it was that that they were curious about. And one of the things that is really important to me is this thing that my kids and I do called question time. So every night before we go to bed, my kids and we sit down and we have question time. It's an open forum. They can ask questions about anything that's they're curious about. And it's my favorite part of the day, and I very rarely miss it. Like I will miss it today, but most days I don't. And it's everything from what happens when we die to why are kids mean to what is the cloud made of. And I really wanted to encapsulate that in the apps that we were making. That idea of provoking questions was really important. And it was also something I was really interested in because I'm on a curriculum committee at their school, and we look at sort of inquiry-based learning. And it's a theory of learning that seemed to work for my kids, and it seemed interesting. But I also didn't want to build things that were just play. I also wanted to incorporate some real rigor and some real thought into those things.
What's cool?
And it's called the Brooklyn School of Inquiry. It's called School of Inquiry. And so, in addition to thinking about what my kids liked and what they wanted, I thought about what I loved when I was a kid and what had changed my view of the world. So, like Myst to me was just the most amazing game, and it still to me is an amazing game. And I wanted to incorporate some of that quietness of Myst in the things that we were making.
Cool.
I also, when I was a kid, I liked things that were a little bit weird, and my kids like things that are a little bit weird. And if you've ever read The Three Robbers, it's odd. It's a little bit sideways. And so we tried to sort of build that stuff in. And then we also thought about sort of the things we wanted to do and didn't want to do. Or I say we, at that point it was just me. So I I hate advertising in apps. So I just early on said we'd never have advertising. We would not track children, even to get analytics, which is something investors don't like to hear. We didn't want to have characters. I have no problem with characters in other apps, but it wasn't something that I was interested in doing. And no sort of cross-promotional advertising. We did want depth, we wanted wonder, a sense of humor, wanted to provoke questions, surprise, and sciencey. It didn't have to be hard science, but I was really interested in science when I was a kid, and I wanted to bring some of that wonder of science into it. And so I built out an entire product line, and one of the first apps that we wanted to make was the human body. And so I thought about the things that made me interested in the human body when I was a kid. So this was, my grandmother had this print in her house, and I loved it. It was like, so just odd. And, I in my local public library, I had books like this Wonder Book. And we had the Charlie Harper biology book at home. And all these were direct influences, and I think if you look at the app, it's very clear like where this stuff comes from. And all these things taught with pictures, and they did a really good job at it. And I didn't want to go much beyond that, except that now we had the opportunity to make all this stuff come alive. And so 2 years ago, what I had was this. So I spent the entire year working on what was a proposal that I was taking around to investors. And it was a hard sell. We were trying to raise $1 million to build the company. And a lot of investors at that time were very averse to investing in companies that were making apps. And it was just me. I did not have a team. I had an idea, but I've done a bunch of things in my life, and I thought I could pull it off. Eventually, one of the people that we talked to was Mitch Kapoor. And Mitch Kapoor is very interested in education, and he asked us, we're really interested in what you're doing, but what are you doing for kids that don't have access to iPads or iPhones and whose parents will never pay $3 for an app? And we actually had an answer for that. So we sent him back a proposal that said our apps are part of this bigger mission to enlarge the world of children all over the place. We want to make our apps broadly available, and making our apps available to underserved communities is a key priority. And we have a bunch of ideas about how to do that, and we pitched all those to him. We also encourage parents to learn and play alongside their kids. We want our apps to provoke questions and for parents to be engaged with their kids. So each app that we're making in Explorer's Library comes with a downloadable learning guide that teachers or parents can use. And it's 1 in 6 people that download the app download this learning guide. And we support STEM. STEM is a series of standards created initially by the National Science Foundation, science, technology, engineering, and math. And they're basically a set of goals, like in order to teach a child about the human body, they need to know about these. And they vary from state to state, and they're still being formed, but we look at those guidelines carefully. Our apps are not curricular, but they are aligned with curriculum. And we haven't done this yet, but we want to create an active forum where parents, teachers, and kids can exchange ideas and questions. And we're committed to peer review. So with that, we got our funding. And so that was a year ago. And we created a little teaser site that had a boat. Not seen in this slide, you could actually go under the ocean and go all the way down to the sort of the center of the earth. And at the bottom of it was just a prompt for an email address. And that's all we asked for. And we also created, since we consume a lot of children's media, and we love children's media, we created this review site, which is still online, called TinyBop Loves. And I and everybody that was working with me were reviewing the types of children's media that we love. And again, we had a prompt for a mailing list. And through this, which was the first thing that we created before we did any code, we built a pretty big mailing list that was essential when we finally launched the app. And they were parents that were exactly aligned to the type of things that we liked. So we actually didn't start coding the app, we started at the brand. So we started from my little rough drawings to eventually the branding that we ended up with, and we created a brand book. That was a 70-page brand book that imagines our brand in all sorts of scenarios. This is just the first app in the first series, but we have several series that we're going to be putting out in the next few years. And they're consistent. And so we thought about all this stuff way, way before we had, written a line of code. And we also imagine them in other contexts. We don't think of our company as just making apps. We're creating content that we're going to be turning into books, apps, and other things as well. So these are sort of potential book covers for the book that we're working on right now. And all our apps are part of the modular code base, which means that as the apps get better, as the code gets better, they will improve all the apps in the system. This stuff you probably already know, but because we use shared code, like we have a translation engine that allows us to take a set of terms from a Google Doc and get it into the app, in a second. So if we have a mistake in one of our translations, we update a Google Doc, we rebuild the app, and it's a very fast process. The dev stack, we use Cocos 2D primarily. All our apps are use the physics engine. It's at the core of everything we're doing because we're using non-repeatable interactions. So we don't use, for example, sprites. Everything is physics-based.
What are sprites anyway?
Sprites are a series of pictures, like a set of animations. So to draw a running man, you would draw the different frames of him running.
Oh,
we
yes.
don't do that. We create a puppet of a man and figure out the physics of how somebody runs.
Oh, really?
Sorry. I jumped forward.
Blank
There
we are.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was the first app, the human body, which I demoed. I'll run through these quick. I didn't show you the brain, but in the brain, to demonstrate like short-term memory, we pull recent photos, and long-term memory, we pull really old photos. And kids often like will look at this and they'll say like, "How did you get my mommy in the app?" Which is just great. And then we tested. We tested a lot. We were testing, I tested with my kids quite a bit, but we brought kids into the office. We tested kids from different socioeconomic groups. We put ads in Craigslist. We tested in schools. And you learn a lot from testing. And one of the things that we learned was that our apps often confuse adults, but kids seem to get it. And adults always wanted more text and more kind of explanation. Kids didn't necessarily need it. And my own personal taste was to keep the text at a minimum. In the parent section, we recently just revamped that. We added a bunch of text for the parents. So before heading to market, we localized in 50 languages, 51 now. We just added Gaelic. And this was a video I was going to show you, but one of the things we did was we created a video that didn't show the product at all. We just asked kids what they were curious about. We asked them what they dreamed about, what questions they had. And so, the kinds of questions they asked were, why do octopuses squirt when they could kick? Why does, why, what was that kid's question?
About the computer?
Yeah, why are computers so flat? Like, how can they store so much stuff if they're so flat? And my favorite one was the last kid who was like, are we getting closer to the future? And so we released this
That's awesome.
right before we released the app. We got it onto a couple of design sites. And because of this video, which didn't show the app at all, it started driving traffic to the site. So we released our mailing list, which was a large mailing list by this point. And we had set goals, and we had set them out loud. So our goals for month 1 were 10,000 paid downloads, sales in the top 10 markets, getting noticed by Apple Press. So we launched August 15th, midnight Australia time. And the next morning, you get the little report. It said that there were 3 paid downloads. And so I was like, just like, we failed. At least I have this great translation engine. But then I noticed that those 3 downloads were actually from the last second of the day before, and it wasn't actually the full day. The actual sales for day 1 were 9K.
Wow.
The actual sales for the first month were 84,000 downloads for the first month in 108 countries. We were heavily featured by Apple. And we had press that we couldn't have written ourselves. The sales were distributed around the world. The United States was 31%. Russia was a strong second, which surprised us.
At this time, did you have Russian in the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we launched in 50 languages.
But you didn't have a Russian email list.
We did not have a Russian email list.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the long tail of countries, the Moldovas and Slovenias and Bolivias, that was 34%. So those translations paid for themselves. In September, Apple wanted us to be part of their paid app of the week. You don't get paid for that, but we were ready, and we look at it as marketing. This is just the first app. We've got a bunch in the pipeline. Being ready for Apple means that they want you to have the artwork in all the languages in their stack. And they're a global company, so they like people that are thinking global. So we launched on 9/18. By day 3, this is what it looked like in App Annie for the education section of the App Store. Even more amazing than this is if you look at the entire App Store, we were in the top 5, around the world, beating Facebook and Twitter and all the giant apps. When the promo ended, we had 4.8 million downloads from 152 countries. It was huge. So today, we're a real company now. We're paying our bills. And a journalist the other day asked me, how do you account for your overnight success? And so, I told them, I think I said, well, it's hard work. But, what I should have said was, I was a kid in East Texas that, loved computers. And I traveled around the world and I got married and I had kids and I quit engineering to be an art history major. And then we worked very hard and I had this amazing team of people that I worked with. And they all had their own stories, which were equally amazing. And together, that's how we did it, and that's how you do overnight success. So this is just the beginning. We have a very long roadmap. We have amazing things coming up. This first app, we made a lot of mistakes, and we see all the flaws. It's going to get better, and the next one's going to be more amazing. And we can't wait to show you more. We're not going to show it to you right now. But it's good stuff. It's really good. And the last thing I want to say is do meaningful work. Make things you love with people you respect, and I'm finally doing something that I'm very proud of. And I've worked for a lot of people and I've made a lot of other people money, but this is the first thing that I've done that really is meaningful to me.
On behalf of the field, I'm glad you got fired. So.